Hey, what's going on, guys? Godstatus here. So I've been wanting to jump into a bunch of these topics recently, and I finally got around to doing it, and coincidentally, Oscar actually touched on one of these topics, the shotguns, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on when this video goes live. However, I would like to give my own thoughts on, everything as a whole that I think is wrong with PF at this current state, and try to talk about them in a more general level and constructive way. Usually in the past, I would just kind of throw around the term overpowered and things like that, but I'm going to try to actually explain myself without just giving a general term and really try to make people understand where I'm coming from, and then we could also discuss and see where other people are coming from. So my first topic that I'm going to go at is going to be shotguns. The reason I want to talk about this is because I believe it's kind of a general agreed upon thing that shotguns are at best annoying. They really don't have much to them that people really enjoy to play against, and the constant argument and the constant thing that comes up is how can you counterplay a shotgun? And to me that just seems a bit iffy. See, it seems that all shotguns have to have some form of counterplay to be played against, and for me personally, having to change your exact playstyle to fully conform around one person using one gun and just completely disrupting your entire match is somewhat of an issue. The reason that shotguns don't have much counterplay is because shotguns aren't like in other games. Let's take a game like this is very, very different. Understand, I'm just using this as a comparison. In no way do these games correlate by any means, and this isn't even a great comparison, I'm just gonna say it. Take a game like Apex Legends, for example. The only time a shotgun one-hits someone is super close range and they don't do anything at more than, a few feet, if that. And then you take a game like PF, where we have shotguns that are able to kill people with one shot with no ammo attachments, mind you, just base shotguns, killing people at up to 60-70 studs. If we take something like even snipers, they can struggle to one hit at this range, period. Nonetheless, we have shotguns doing it with no special ammo, and a shotgun, at least in my eyes, is meant to be really, really dominant in close range, and that's all fun and games, and I fully support that. Shotguns definitely need to have a place in a game. I just think that these ones have too much. Having shotguns that can one-shot up to, 70, 80, even sometimes 100 studs, depending on the ammo attachment, but even just base shotguns one-shotting, 50, 60, 80 studs is definitely very much of an issue. There isn't counterplay to that, and the reason that there isn't is that we're shooting multiple pellets. It's not like we're taking a sniper and you have one bullet, and if you miss that one singular bullet, you're screwed. You don't get that kill. With a shotgun, you have many chances. Now granted, you may need 4 or 5 pellets to hit, but that's only 4 or 5 pellets out of 8, out of 12, out of 16, whatever the option may be, however many pellets could be in a certain ammo type. I'm not saying those are the exact ammo type numbers, I'm just saying they're just giving an example. Instead of one bullet having to hit for you to even have a chance at killing, which mind you, that one bullet would have to hit the torso, no other limb on the body, you have things like a shotgun where you have to hit 50% of your shot rather than the 100%. And with those shotguns, you have to hit 50% at an 80 stud range is a little ridiculous to me. The fact that shotguns are all about counterplay, how can you change your playstyle to adapt to against a shotgun? And the truth of the matter is that you really just can't at times. There's no way your AR is going to be able to kill someone faster than they could just look up and just hit left click and 50% of their pellets can hit you. I'll have gameplay in the background throughout this. I'm not sure exactly what it will be, but it will probably be the KSG gameplay that I got on Metro, where you can see I'm fairly consistently one-shotting people with a base KSG, the level 1 shotgun that you unlock, and I have no ammo types on it at all. The gun is purely stock. There's nothing influencing the damage, the range, anything like that, and I'm just absolutely running through people. There isn't any counterplay to being immediately dead at such a range that you can't even really do much. Now we're talking about these shotguns that are dominating SMG range, that are dominating the heavy damage AR range, the heavy damage LMG range. These shotguns are competing at such a level that there isn't any counterplay in my eyes. And for the fact that something needs to always be discussed about counterplay for the gun to be considered fair is a little bit of the issue in its own. You shouldn't have to adapt your playstyle completely to fight against one specific gun. I feel like that kind of ruins the factor of balance. You should be able to play in a similar way against all guns, and that's where balance comes into play. If someone's using a sniper, obviously they have the advantage at range, but they struggle a lot more close range, and you should have shotguns which should absolutely dominate the close range, 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 studs, but after that they should not be as dominant as they are right now, and I think a lot of people can agree that playing against shotguns is just pure annoying. I'm not going to use the term overpowered, they're just flat out annoying. When you come around a corner and a guy can shoot 12 pellets per shot and he has an automatic shotgun, that's an issue. When you have a guy who's shooting, 10, 12 pellets per shot at 1,000 rounds per minute, that's an issue. What is the counterplay to that when your screen is shaking, when there's so many pellets going around, and with how big the character models are on PF? Let's not forget that. Our character models are absolutely huge. There isn't any way of getting around that. We can't make ourselves smaller. We can't do anything like that. And PF is much more fast-paced of a game than something else. The next topic I want to hop into is ammo types. I've said this before, and I will say it until the end of time. I personally feel that ammo types have been a downfall for Phantom Forces, and let's explain why. The fact that these things have been added and they have been a constant project since the start is where they become an issue. I feel like they've almost never found a balance point. They've either been too strong or just not strong enough. It's either you must use these because they're just so good, or you just don't even think about them because they're utterly useless. Now, granted, they're in a much better spot now than they have been in the past. I fully understand that, and I do admit to that, but I think that constantly having to revisit these things is an issue. The fact that we have to balance, 5 different ammo types per gun is an issue. The fact that these guns are getting, there's some guns out there that have 6 ammo types, if I'm not mistaken. There's so much going on. Then this will hop into, attachments and ammo types as a whole in a little bit. I'll kind of re-wrap around to this. But there's so much going on with these that none of it really is, it's not easy to balance. First of all, half of it nobody even looks at because most people just don't understand a lot of what's going on with them. Let's be honest, we're playing this with a younger audience. A lot of them don't look into this at some levels that some other people do. Some people, they go through, they look at the stats, they really compare things, they try to find the best thing for the gun. Most people will see, 37 different ammo types. They don't have all these things unlocked. They don't have the credits to buy all of them. There's so much going on that they just don't care anymore. And can you really blame them for that? If you pick up a gun and you're like, oh, it could 4-shot kill at this range, that's pretty neat, and then you could find out that you can make that gun a 3-shot kill, or a 5-shot kill, or a 6-shot kill, or you can turn it into a shotgun, you can turn a battle rifle into an assault rifle. There's so much going on that people don't really care to look at, not to mention the fact that they're hard to balance, period. Remember for the longest time that AP had the 1.2 times torso multiplier, and that took maybe a year or two before that was changed, which I'm not saying, I'm not going to give my opinion whether it needed to be changed or not. I think there was tweaking that could have been involved, but the issue is that using an ammo type that could be on every single gun is impossible, in my opinion at least, to properly balance it over, the 100 guns that we have. Now, if we're talking, the occasional gun got one other ammo type, and that was just, for that gun specifically, it's modified to balance that gun. Okay, cool. But when you have something like, let's say, Hollow Point, where with a lot of guns it didn't do too much, and then you had the MP10, which became a 3-shot anywhere up to like 80 studs, that became a little overwhelming to an extent because they just weren't on the same level. These guns, all the guns had access to Hollow Point, but most of them didn't benefit, and then some benefited too much, some didn't benefit at all. There's so much going on with having a ammo type that goes across, like, basically 50 guns, that there's just so much to do that you really can't put a number on everything. I think that ammo types have been an issue, especially with shotguns, with ARs, the fact that, a DMR can be turned into a shotgun. You have shotguns, quote-unquote shotguns, that are now able to shoot faster and faster. There's things that just shouldn't have been, in my opinion, and I think that they will constantly be an issue. We will always have to revisit these and relook at them, or they will become unwanted content because nobody will really care to look into them. And I feel like that's just wasting our time, that's wasting, the people developing its time. It's overall not something that really benefits the game in any way, and I think it's more of just a clutter than anything else. Going off the ammo types, I feel like the ammo category needs to be discussed as well. On certain things, this is where it becomes an issue. I personally feel as though the ammo type should have just stayed in the other category. I know the prime example is going to be the AA-12, where you can have a 20-round drum and flechette ammo, but this also goes to extend with other guns are getting extended mags now, and they can also have extended mags with ammo types. Now, granted, I don't know of any, perfect combinations off the top of my head, but this is leading us into potential failures and mistakes in the future where they just don't have the opportunity to balance them as they should. I personally feel as though that the other category should have kept the ammo type so that you can't have an extended mag and an ammo type. That's just me. I feel like there's a lot of issues with that as a whole. I don't think many people would really want that, and at least in my eyes, I don't see why they would. Maybe they will. But I feel as though that's just really a big issue to have, God forbid, let's say we get an extended mag on, there was talks about the extended mag on like the MG3KWS. And what happens if the MG3KWS gets a ammo type that gets overlooked, or, let's say AP gets buffed again, and then it has a 100-round mag with an even stronger ammo type. it's setting up so much more to think about on such a more complex level, which I'm not saying it can't be done. I just feel like it's not necessary for where the game is going. As for where the game is going, we all know that Phantom Forces is slowly coming to an end. The developers are working on Core 6. Everything is kind of wrapping up, and this is more or less just, some filler updates to keep people playing. I feel that maps have been an issue for a very long time in Phantom Forces, and I think a lot of people will come to agree with me on that. There's very few maps that I personally consider really fun, and there's a lot of maps that I really just flat out don't want to play. Mall has become just a clutterfest. It's no longer enjoyable for me to play on because of all the things we have now, all the shotguns, all the super strong close range SMGs, super strong close range ARs, battle rifles, things like that. It's very much a heavily dominated map now, and I just don't find it fun to play on anymore. Maps like Mirage, I just don't flat out enjoy, and that's because I don't like how big it is. There's so much going on. There's just not a fast pace to the map, and I just don't enjoy it because of that, but that's just me. Now you take a map like Desert Storm, even like Metro, which Metro definitely has balance issues, but I find Metro to be fun at least. You take maps like Bazaar, I think Bazaar is a really good one. I don't mind Blizzard. I'm not a huge fan of Jungle, if that's the name. I forget off the top of my head. But there's just a lot of maps that people just don't enjoy. In my personal opinion, there has not been a map as good as Desert Storm to come out for a very long time. Bazaar on a fun level is really enjoyable for me, I fully think that, but something like Desert Storm has just not been recreated in the years that this game has been out. Maps, I feel like, are definitely a very weak point in this game. There's a lot of issues with them. There's constantly reworks that need to be done. There's, the mall rework that was supposed to happen years ago just never came to be, and that's fine. There's just a lot of issues, and I feel like maps as a whole have always been a weak point for this game. To the point where I personally just won't play on certain maps. I just flat out don't enjoy them, and that does not, I do not speak for the entire community by any means. I'm just voicing my opinion. If I see Mirage, I flat out don't play it. I don't think I've ever willingly played a game of Mirage more than a few times, because the map just is in no way, shape, or form the same fast-paced gameplay that we get everywhere else. But maps, I personally feel, have just been a flat-out weak point for the game, and they have not gotten much better over the years, and that's something kind of disappointing to see. I'm not saying that I could do it better than anyone. I'm just saying I really wish that we could, find people out there who are really into this and can make a really solid map, and I think that if we had another good map or two in the game, it would really bring some more life into it, but obviously that is very much a lot easier said than done. As for updates as a whole, I think the general population of the game could agree with me that there's just too much going on right now. I think that all the sights being added to the guns just don't really belong there. I also don't like the fact that there aren't categories, and the fact that, you have to scroll through and really look for the sight attachment that you want because there's just so many. I don't think that all these guns needed all of them. Like, sure, on one hand, it's cool to have all the options, but on the other hand, how many people really want all those options? As a player, as a new player, let's say, you go and you unlock a site, and you're like, oh, awesome, let me go equip that, and you open up the sites tab, and there's 60 more sites, and you have no idea what all of them do, and they're all just a little bit different in certain ways, or they have just a tiny bit different zoom, or, there's 5 different DDHB sites, or whatever they're called. There's, multiple reflex-style sites. There's so much going on that, A, are not categorized, B, most people will never even use all of them, and C, most people just get overwhelmed by them. Even for myself, trying to change a site is just ridiculously annoying that I just flat out don't want to do it. Not to mention the fact that there's becoming more and more other category things where it's like canted sites, which again, more sites just in a different category. There's all these new barrels, there's new everything, there's 27 different suppressors that most people don't even know the difference to. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that we do have this game on a younger audience platform. Most of them will not understand even half of this, so to give the people that, some people will look into it, most people won't. A lot of people just flat out don't fit the requirement that would understand or really take advantage of the attachments in there. In my opinion, personally, most of the attachments in there flat out don't have any advantage to them. They're just kind of there. And this is an issue that comes up with having so many things in this game, is that there's so much going on that you can't give everything a purpose. Not everything could be good at something. Not everything could be the quote-unquote meta of the game. Everything has a place, but most of it seems like they're all in the same place. They're there, we know of them, we understand that they, could do something, they could serve some form of purpose, but most of us don't care to find that purpose out because the general population doesn't use them. For example, you will find it very hard, and I mean very hard, to find someone out there that knows the difference between all the suppressors off the top of their head. I think this is a popular topic that I've discussed personally a lot of times, and I know a lot of other creators have, and a lot of other people in the community just as a whole have. And although this is a very common topic, I still feel like I want to throw it in here so all my thoughts can be kind of summarized into one video, and I'd like to hear you guys' opinion as well. Vote kicking has been an issue for a very long time. Ever since it's been in the game, vote kick has been abused, it has been used unfairly, and there hasn't really been a solid fix to it, which I do not blame anyone for. I understand this is a very touchy subject, a very touchy topic, and it's really, really hard to balance it. I'm going to give out a few things that I can suggest. Does that mean that I'm right? No, not at all. It's just how I feel in the topic. For vote kicking, I personally feel that people should, flat out be able to lose their permissions. Most people are playing on their main accounts and they see someone they don't like or something's happening that they don't like, and they'll abuse vote kick just to remove that specific person from the game, and that should not be allowed. Take it for people who have been known to be constantly abusing it, and they just get like a chat ban, which means they can't chat, period, but what does that do? That doesn't really do anything when their chat ban's up. And I personally don't feel like removing their ability to type is the best thing to do. Granted, if they had the ability to type, they could ask other people to kick, but not everyone's just going to fall into what they say. Not everyone's going to follow someone just because they said, hey, let's kick this guy. I know most people out there probably see a vote kick pop up and they initially just hit Y right away. You can see it a lot of times. The second a vote kick pops up, it'll immediately spike to like 5 or 6 yeses, and I guarantee you, I will put money on it that those 5 or 6 people, 97% of the time, have no idea why that person's even being kicked. They just immediately hit something hoping that it'll eventually say no or yes and it'll just clear off of their screen. They just don't want it to be there, period. Now, some fixes to this, in my personal opinion, would just be flat out removing people's ability to vote kick as a whole. Granted, there would be steps to this. You'd lose it for a week, 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. There would be tiers to it. You wouldn't just lose it immediately, but actually having some form of permanent punishment could actually deter people from doing this. Having a real sense of punishment that, hey, if I keep abusing this, I will never be able to vote kick someone again. If you abuse something so much that it becomes a problem, you are ruining the gameplay for other people, you are the issue, and you should not be able to have that option to do so. This is a small little quick topic, but I'll play some footage up of it right now. Vaulting has been an issue in the game for quite some time. There's times where you vault over things that just aren't there, or you vault over corners of something, which just doesn't make sense. I don't know how easy this could be fixed. It's just really bothersome at times. I don't know how many people really care about this section of the video. It's just something I wanted to add in real quick. Another topic I've discussed in the past very quickly is the issue of trade kills. This actually assists people who play on really laggy connection, which I know not everyone can handle it, or not everyone can help where they're playing from, but at the same time, I don't think that having trade kills is good for anyone, in my opinion. Having someone who's extremely laggy and giving them the opportunity to get a kill or something just because they're laggy is not the way to benefit the general population of the game. Most of the time during, normal hours, I'm Eastern Standard Time Zone, which means most of the time during Eastern Standard Time Zone, I will join any server on Phantom Forces, and I'll usually have a decent ping because, most of America is up. Now you go towards, let's say, 3, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, Europeans start to wake up because they're a few hours ahead of us. Most of the servers are going to be really laggy for me. Giving me the benefit of playing, at an obscene time just because I have extremely high ping doesn't seem fair as a whole, especially as someone who has to deal with it where people teleport around a corner or they're so laggy you start shooting at them and you kill them, you don't see any bullets on your screen, and then you just end up dying because the entire time they were still playing and the server's just trying to catch up. I don't think that trade kills should personally exist. I think it causes more issues than it does, benefit anyone. I just don't like the topic of it at all. It was removed for a while throughout the game, and I personally enjoyed that a lot more, and I know a few people else have. But that's just me. One final topic I'd like to go over is the LMGs in Phantom Forces. Now, I know there's some potential updates in the future, but I'm speaking on at this very current moment what is in the main game and not what is in the test place or what is to come. I don't know all of what is planned in the test place. I don't really look in there too super often. Just discussing the current state of the game. LMGs, in my personal opinion, have been a very big issue for a very long time. These guns behave very similar to ARs, and I think that's the primary issue in them as a whole. They're just very powerful AR. They have insanely good accuracy. Most of the time they have really good damage. They have good penetration depth. They have good muzzle velocity. The only downside they have is their reload speeds and their movement speed. And that just flat out does not balance a gun as a whole. You have something like the M33KWS. When that gun first came out, it was an absolute laser beam, and their balancing question or their balancing argument on a general level, some of the staff members I spoke to and the people talking about the gun as a whole, was just that the gun reloads and it takes a while. An 8-second reload does not balance those 50 bullets that are flying at me like a goddamn laser beam across the map. It isn't the main balance point. Sure, does it make the gun not as usable as other things because it has such a long reload? Without a doubt, that is part of a total balance point, but just having a long reload does not mean that the gun is balanced. That's not how this works. We don't balance a gun based off, oh wow, he's reloading. No, we balance it at the fact that the guy could shoot 50 bullets at precision accuracy as such like an AUG A1 with good damage, and they were shooting at like 800 fire rate or whatever the MG3 is. I don't know off the top of my head. LMGs are flat out better variants of ARs, and it really just makes ARs not worth using compared to LMGs unless you don't enjoy the movement speed that much, which is one of the reasons that I personally don't like using LMGs. Now that's just me, but on a very general level, I think it'd be quite ignorant to say that something like the AUG H-bar, you wouldn't use it because it just has a little bit slower movement speed compared to the AUG A1. Or something like the RPK, which is much stronger than, let's say, the AK-74, has more bullets, more penetration depth, and it's just flat out better. You take something like the M60, which finally has gotten somewhat of a nerf after the very longest of times, and it's still an extremely strong gun. You take something like the L86 LSW, which is flat out a stronger L85, period, hands down. It shoots just as accurate, it does more damage, it has a slightly longer reload. LMGs are in almost all ways, shape, or forms better ARs, and I think that's not how they should be handled. If you look at most other games, LMGs are not full-blown laser beams. They do not hold 100 bullets with almost zero recoil. They are just not as powerful as they are in Phantom Forces, and I personally think that's a very long issue that is just slowly starting to be addressed, but the game's already coming to a close. There's so much in the game now that, like I want to reiterate from before, nobody flat out cares to find out what it is. And that's nobody's fault except the fact that there's just so much, people simply just don't understand all of it. There's so much going on with so many attachments, so many sites, ammo conversions, that the average player, I'd be willing to put money in my belief, the average player does not have the care to figure that all out. All this is doing is satisfying the extremist of the game, in my opinion, the very niche community that wants all these things. I personally feel that the general population of the game would much more enjoy better maps. They would much more enjoy much simpler things that they can understand a bit easier. Most of the players out there don't even know how to read the advanced PF stats, nonetheless actually understand them. There's just so much out there that I feel the game is now fitting the niche community of the extreme people who would look into this game at way too high of a level for my liking, and they just don't fit the general population's wants anymore. That's just how I see it. I think they would much rather, game improvements, they would much rather map improvements, anything server related, anything like that, way before we would like to see another 30 sites added to the game. I know this was kind of ranty. I'm going to try to timestamp it all. I hope I did. I'm going to have a pinned comment below. Check out Radioactive Gaming. Check out Spirals. They gave me some ideas to talk about in the video and some of the things I went over. Again, I'll have a pinned post with all the links to their channels in there. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, you're an absolute legend. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.